Prof Makanya, members of council, and all the colleagues here. I see quite a number of familiar faces. Thank you for the kind invitation, and thank you for the opportunity to just start the discussions in what I've seen in the 3 days on the program. A very interesting and enriching program that you have in terms of risk management. Luckily, I've seen on day 2 and day 3 that you'll go into the detail of what risk management is and how to implement all of that and the technical part. So I won't be boring you with all those details now because you will be hearing it later again. In my discussions with Mr. Fortuin and the team, we just thought to introduce the issue of risk management in the university. My apologies, Prof, for the branding as well, but I'm loyally TUT, just to the west. There's one quote that I always find very interesting, and it links to what the VC has said now. And that is, it's really true. If we different picture in your head, in your mind, of what risk and risk management is. And in a big organization like this, in a university like this, same with the university where I'm involved, people have different perceptions. If you go to the Faculty of Arts, colleagues, and you talk about risk there, you get a totally different feedback, believe me. In terms of what constitutes a risk. But if you don't talk on that level to all of them, you lose them. And that's where it fails in terms of the implementation of risk management. Risk 101, I said I'm not going to do the basics of risks, but we created this little character. His name is Tsepo, is very successful. He became very successful as a businessman out of a township situation, and how we explain risk, very elementary to our first years. So I'm not comparing you at that level, but maybe this will give you a good idea. See, there's no sound now. Are you ready? Apologies, it did work when they tested it earlier.
Tsepo's business, like every other business, whether big or small, needs to achieve certain objectives or goals to remain in business. To achieve these goals, the business faces certain risks. Luckily, these risks can be avoided or managed by implementing certain controls. Let's look at objectives, risks, and controls in a bit more detail. An objective is something that you want to achieve. For example, your objective or goal was to be on time for class today. A risk is something that can go wrong and prevent you from achieving your objective. For example, your risk was oversleeping and being late for class. A control is an action that you take to prevent a risk from happening. For example, you implemented the control of setting your alarm and avoided the risk of oversleeping and being late for class.
Colleagues, this is risk 101. Am I correct? Now my question is, will you be oversleeping? Because that is what we're saying. If we don't predict what can go wrong, and we don't put the control in place to prevent it from going wrong, you're going to oversleep, and you're going to miss the opportunity. Why bother with the whole enterprise-wide risk management process? You must increase your risk awareness in your organization. People must understand that you've got objectives at various levels in this organization. What can go wrong? What is changing? Are we lagging behind? It's a big organization, any university in South Africa. And as the VC has said, we react slowly sometimes. It happens. But we need to assess what can go wrong and what can go right from this. We need to increase our understanding throughout the organization of risk, the sensitivities around that, what makes it increase, what makes it decrease, and when does a risk disappear. They tend not to, I've found, through my years in audit committees. We always say, promote a healthy risk culture. It's safe to talk about risk because then we're open and transparent, we know what can go wrong, and we can put measures in place to prevent this from going wrong. And if you don't have, and I think this is a very good session that you have here for the next few days, because then you develop a common and consistent approach to risk management across the organization. The buy-in remains a problem everywhere. And if you struggle with buy-in in UNISA, it happens everywhere, colleagues. I see it in many national government departments. Your problem is that people see this as part of your bureaucracy. It's another report. It's another tick box that I have to tick to make sure that we're complying with everything, but it's never embedded. If we discuss this, if we have it throughout the organization, it allows for intelligent and informed risk-taking. As the DVC has said, sometimes you have to take a risk to achieve something, or else you'll just lock up and do nothing. Because if you do nothing, there are no risks, of course. It focuses your efforts, it assists you to prioritize. You've got your top 10 list or your top 3. I always say, however, for this audience here, if I talk about council members, if I talk about EMC members here, what will your focus be? Unfortunately, you cannot worry about the person who undertook an unauthorized trip somewhere, because you've got a bigger risk to manage. You've got a bigger environment out there that you must pay attention to. And the moment you start being bogged down by these little mishaps within an organization, you're no longer managing strategically. And then you might burn your fingers. And I've seen this in organizations. Risk management, and this will come from the few days now, and I've seen it on the program as well. Proactive, not reactive. Prepare for a risk before it happens. And then we talk at, and I've got a slide later, at which level do we look at what? The manager 4 levels down must look at a person who's taking an unauthorized trip, yes. So it must be on somebody's risk radar. And if we know we've got an integrated risk management process in your university, we know that that will be taken care of. And then those that have to focus on more important, well, nothing is more important, maybe more strategic things, then they have the time to do that. The end result of good risk management is we want to improve our outcomes. We want to achieve our objectives, whichever they are, at whichever level they are. Are they operational? Are they strategic? So this is why we bother with risk management. This is why we have the 3 days here, and this is why we have workshops throughout an organization. It's not an easy thing to sell. Mr. Fortuin, I think you agree with me on that one. But I can see a lot of positive in my discussions with them on what's happening in UNISA with regard to risk. But I see colleagues here from government departments. Some government departments, it's going very well with risk management. In some, it's just a Section 38 of the PFMA tick. We've done it. Here's the minutes of a risk meeting. But you can't see it in the operations. I've recently had a master's student who did a study on banks. Now, you can imagine the risk in banks. And even there, they've got problems with certain types of risks that they have to implement controls for. So it's everywhere. External risk factors is what the DVC has referred to now. Our environment in tertiary education has changed totally over the last couple of years, and even more so in the last 18 months. It has changed, and it will not stop changing soon. There's a lot of uncertainty around this. It's very quiet from DHET at the moment, I know. Everybody's waiting for what is going to happen with fees. And that's classified information, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give you an example of what I think at the moment is something that that have changed our lives. You know, the scientists, and some say only the natural sciences, those guys are scientists because they do that kind of research. Humanities and economics and finance, you're not doing real research. But in any case, we prove them wrong. You've seen these. Scientists declare that we've isolated the gene that causes hair loss or whatever. You've seen that, right? Now, in my small world as a scientist, I've really done some research under a microscope, and I've isolated one of the key things that has changed our world. And it's very elementary, ladies and gentlemen. That has changed our lives, ladies and gentlemen. This little symbol, quite unknown and hidden away until how many years ago? How many months ago? This is a little symbol that has caused statues to fall. It has caused fees to fall. It has caused people to fall. It has caused governments to fall, because that was part of the Arabian Spring that we had there in the Middle East at the stage. Prof Makanya, if I can ask you, if you wanted to organize a student protest in 1978, how did you do it? Did we post a letter to say, please be there at that time? What did we do? Well, there were no cell phones, and those little things, you couldn't reach everybody. This has changed, ladies and gentlemen, to something that we must have on our risk radar, because I can organize something tomorrow at 12 in front of your gate, because I've got a group and I've got this little symbol. What has this become a symbol of? And I'm talking external now, right? This has actually become a symbol of people's frustration, ladies and gentlemen. Perception of not being heard, and this little hashtag, I'm being heard now. All right. It's also misused, yes, for the wrong purposes. But it is something that has become a symbol and a tool for mass mobilization as well. So, are we ready for this new hashtag generation? Can we manage that? Or do we, when it happens, we start with crisis management? Fees must fall, ladies and gentlemen, and it's boring already. But it had a huge impact on all universities, and it had a huge impact on the Department of Higher Education and Training. Because of the impact of such a sudden decision, because that's what it was. Somebody goes out and says, no fees. And then 1,000 others have to find it somewhere. At that stage, we were already at DHET, and it's not classified information. You can check the accruals that came through in the next year on the financial statements. Did not have enough money even to meet that year's of, commitments. So it's not something that there's a hatful of money that we can just take from. We had to get money from various sources we won't be able to repeat. And there's no money on the budget of DHET for this. That's general knowledge. But now, when they have the time, Treasury has also said, sorry, but we also don't have anything for you. So we're saying it's being delayed, ladies and gentlemen, but it's like the duck on the pond. It might look calm, we're looking at it, but believe me, underneath, the little feet are going like that. So, yes, there is a process. People are looking for money, but it's not. We don't have those kind of resources. We had a graduation ceremony in Limpopo a while ago, and there were some of the senior colleagues from our northern universities that joined us. And you know, with the graduation ceremony, you have a cup of tea before, etc. Now I listen attentively to the people's discussions, where senior people will say, listen, DHET will just have to fund this. DHET will just have to fund this. And I'm standing there. I'm the audit committee chair of DHET, and I see the financials every couple of months. If you think you can use that sentence in every second paragraph, you're making a huge mistake. What I'm saying is, we have to be prepared for a scenario where we don't have that luxury anymore of just getting additional money. So, what is your budget for next year? Is it the one with what we would love to do everything that we need to do? Or is there a plan B if we don't get any additional money? Because it doesn't matter even if we get a little more from DHET this year. We will have to work smarter. We will have to manage this risk. And there's no fat anymore in any institution. Will this financial risk, will it distract you from your core business? Or will you be prepared? It's easy to say, research will just suffer. And I hear all these things, and I know it's true. I am in a university, I sit in all the structures, but I also sit in government. And I'm conscious of time. From an external perspective, and that's what my brief was, we cannot be divorced from government's priorities for this country. There's a development plan, there are a number of plans, there's the higher education strategy that the VC has referred to. We are, as universities, we are part of this. Without our outputs, we can't achieve the development goals in the country. And I quote the DG a while ago, and he won't mind me quoting him. He said, government doesn't want to take over universities. We can't manage universities. Wherever that happened in some of our countries, close to us, they failed. You see what I'm saying? But, ladies and gentlemen, we say, we are fearless, we are independent, we are original, we are a university. Yes, and stay like that. But the next day you post the letter that says, give us your money. Can you understand? We are independent, don't mess with us. Please, man, I just need a couple of billion to survive. So if you have that scenario, ladies and gentlemen, it is something that you have to manage, this relationship. There's one section in the PFMA, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I did have to capture it. And that's in Section 38 of the Public Finance Management Act, which says that the accounting officer, the head of the DG of the head, cannot transfer money to an institution where they are not comfortable, that the controls are in place, that there's mismanagement of money, etc. So this is a risk, ladies and gentlemen. If there is just a rumor of mismanagement, fraud, theft in your university, you will have the focus here. People say, why is the Auditor General getting involved? Is this a risk for us? I sit in the audit committee meeting and we have to sign off on the performance information of DHET. What we report to Parliament, what we've achieved. And for that, we rely on what comes from HEMAS and what comes from your university in terms of your statistics, etc. If we can't rely on the information that comes here, we get a qualification on our audit report, like we have with the TVET colleges now. We can't rely on the information that comes there. So that's why the AG is getting more and more involved. So if the AG comes and wants to audit here in terms of your performance information, it's for a reason. It's managing somebody else's risk. You understand what I'm saying? So that is the reality. If you plan, ladies and gentlemen, there's a small little document available. If you plan for your university from 16 to 20 at the moment, and you don't have this document next to you, just to consider as well, because this is a strategic plan for DHET agreed with Parliament. If in there it says, we will increase enrollment at universities 5% per year for the next 3 years, it will be very difficult for a university to say, I'm full. Can you see what I'm saying? So if you want to manage this risk, you must have all the information out there, and I know you are doing this. I mean, all the universities are doing this. Risk management is critical. I've spoken about that top level now, and that is strategic. This is managing your relationships outside, managing the effect of hashtags. Are we monitoring social media? Are we tracking how many times UNISA is being mentioned together with a negative connotation? You get people who do that now. I found out last year for a department, we said, we want to know, are we out there? Is it positive or negative? And it's managing a risk. Then I said at the second level, at your program level, you have to manage your risks there, and then operational risk. That's where I said, is this an unauthorized trip? That we missed 2 signatures here, etc. That's operational. A simple framework I found a long time ago at the Ottawa Department of Health on how they explain to their staff what they need to do. They've got objectives, they identify the risks, they assess the risks, and they take action. But somebody must monitor that. There we talk about, and I suppose you will see it a lot over the next couple of days, it's your 3 lines of defense against risk, materializing, against controls that are not functioning. And that's management. If you're a manager, you're responsible to prevent things from going wrong. Then we've got risk management, our colleagues here, compliance, etc. They're the next level. So if you miss something, they must pick it up. And then the third one, of course, is internal audit. That must tell the council through the audit committee, we've got the chair here. that there's a problem there. Fix it. We've got the responsibilities, council, audit committee, exco, etc. What should your audit committee be doing? We've got a list of things. They call it these days, and I can really attest to this. There's an article that was published last year which says audit committee overload. They think it's a committee with a magic wand that will fix everything. It's a committee of council. It monitors, but it must monitor a number of things, and among them, risk management. This, unfortunately, the buck stops here, because council is relying on the audit committee to advise whether the risk management practices are effective. Is this your audit committee? Chair, I believe not. And this happens sometimes when we get to risk management on the agenda. I see that. Oh. Have you seen it? Not? Okay, then I'm very, very glad. Audit committee, you've got a big role to play in ensuring that the guys from risk management have the support that they need. But if your risk management strategy, ladies and gentlemen, looks like this, believe me, you're losing everybody, right? And everything here is valid. You can come and read each of them, right? But people just shut down. They're no longer interested. So if this is your strategy, I've got bad news for you. So all that we're saying is structure your approach, integrate it into your processes, try and simplify, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Because if you get 3 levels down, people are very reluctant to talk about these things. Keep your focus at the right level and just take small bites. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.